This is the bracelet on the wrist, fully extended.
So it's mainly sized for your
Neck.
neck.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a closer look of two classics. Before we get started, I'm Karar and I'm sitting here with
Alex.
All right, Alex.
Yes.
So let's
go.
dive
Let's
in. All right. So guys, we have today two classic watches. First off, on the left side here, I have the Rolex Sea-Dweller that was introduced back in 2017. And we're going to take a slight comparison to the Rolex Submariner to just give you a little bit of profile between the two. Alex,
Yep.
the Rolex Sea-Dweller,
Yes.
how do you like it?
This one in particular, or in general the model line?
In general?
In general, I like the Sea-Dweller. I had one actually before for a short period of time.
Which one?
And 16600.
Okay.
Yeah. The downside for me with that particular watch is it's very top heavy
Okay.
compared to a Submariner or GMT.
Yeah.
It's really top heavy, so I couldn't really feel comfortable with that one on the wrist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool model with a lot of history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you maybe can walk us through a bit of the history of the Sea-Dweller.
Yeah, I mean, let's take it back to its humble beginnings. The Rolex Sea-Dweller was first introduced back in...
Holy shit, I forgot my watch, man.
All right, so it was first introduced back in 1967, and it was actually commissioned by the French diving company Comex. So you probably heard the term Comex before.
Dollar signs.
Not because it was expensive dives, but because Rolex and Comex worked on a lot of different watches, and they commissioned some watches for their divers, and they had the Comex logo printed on the dial. Nowadays, a Comex dial Submariner Sea-Dweller, they are fetching crazy prices in the vintage market. I mean, a pristine one will
Couple of $100,000.
over $100,000 for a normal Submariner with the Comex text on it. So that's where the Sea-Dweller actually started. The Sea-Dweller was in the beginning a modified Submariner, and hence why we have these two side by side to see what the evolution throughout the years have brought us.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what happened after that, Alex?
After the first reference,
Yeah.
they developed the Sea-Dweller even further and made it even more water resistant to take it on even deeper dives.
Yeah.
And we have also the deep sea models.
Mm-hmm.
That are the chunky ones.
Yep.
If we think this one is chunky, then the Sea-Dweller Deep Sea is
Even chunkier.
oh yeah.
So in comparison, this is a 43 millimeter.
Yep.
And the deep sea you're referring to is the 44 millimeter, right?
Exactly. So, and they have even some special ones, the Deep Sea Challenge, and some other special prototypes from the past that has been on, some crazy missions in submarines and whatnot.
Absolutely. There were actually one video of one of those watches, I think, that was going around social media on Instagram. The one with this crystal.
Yeah.
Billy, make sure to put this in. So yeah, I mean, a lot have happened with the Sea-Dweller, and nowadays, if you look at it, it is much bulkier than the first versions.
Naturally, since it's now water resistant to almost 4 times from the first one. It's 1,200 meters now, or 4,000 feet, and the first one was like
2,000 feet.
2,000 feet. Yeah, so it's double the water resistance and even more than double in the thickness.
Absolutely. And if we just compare them side by side with the Submariner here, if we take a closer look here, so the you can clearly see the difference just looking at the bezel alone. You see that the Sea-Dweller has deeper jagged corners than the normal Submariner. The Submariner actually looks tiny in comparison to the Sea-Dweller.
Keep in mind, this is the 41mm version of the Submariner.
Exactly.
So it's only 2mm in difference.
Accordingly, yeah.
But
we know the Submariner is 40.5. And also, there are some very cool things with the Sea-Dweller bracelet that the Submariner doesn't have.
The dive extension, yeah, it's pretty cool. And it took us a while to figure out how it actually worked.
Yes, indeed. So if we start off by opening up the Sea-Dweller, you have the normal extension here that is 20mm that you can move up.
Yep, the glide lock function.
Glide lock function.
Famous glide lock.
And then once you close that, you also have another extension that you simply open up by pushing down here, and it will open up like this. And this is the bracelet on the wrist, fully extended.
So it's mainly sized for your
neck.
For your neck.
No, obviously, the reason for this is since it's a dive watch, you want to be able to put it on your wrist on top of everything
your wetsuit
you're wearing, to be able to have the right fit for it.
Yes.
And fast adjustment with the glide lock.
Okay, so let's talk a bit of the characteristics of this specific Sea-Dweller. So as you see here, guys, on the dial we have the red, single red.
Yeah.
Please note, since the first Sea-Dweller, 1665,
was it double red?
Double red. So we had Sea-Dweller and Submariner 2000 in red writing.
Yep.
And here we see Sea-Dweller in single red.
Yes.
Which is mostly known for the Rolex 1680 single red. And that was the Rolex Submariner back in the late 60s and early 70s. And
those pieces are hot today.
Exactly. Very hot. So people were, at the introduction of this watch, of the Sea-Dweller 43, a bit confused, to say the least, because we see two features now on the Sea-Dweller that is super iconic for the Submariner.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the single red writing.
Yes.
And we have the Cyclops.
Yep.
And the Cyclops has never been present on a Sea-Dweller before.
Yep. This is the first one.
Yeah. However, the single red writing, people were like, but shouldn't they do it double red as the first Sea-Dweller?
Yes.
There were actually a very few pieces of the Sea-Dweller with single red writing that were the first prototypes made. So
back in 67.
Yeah, exactly. So that's quite interesting because I didn't know that at first.
Yeah.
But when we did some research, there are actually single red Sea-Dwellers.
And when we did the research, what was fun as well, different sources state different numbers in regards to quantities out there. So some people say it's 4 prototypes out there with single red. Some people say it's 6. Then we found
10 or 11.
A third source saying that's 10 or 11, with actually backing it up with some pictures, etc. So we believe there is above 10 pieces at least with the single red.
Around 10 pieces with single red, right? But it's
super extremely
super rare. But that was an interesting aspect of the new Sea-Dweller 43.
Yeah.
But also the Cyclops.
Yeah.
That I didn't see coming.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because, I mean, since the introduction, all these years, but keep in mind, this is a 50th anniversary piece as well.
Yeah.
So maybe they wanted to spice things up a bit, or I don't know. Yeah.
I actually like it that it kind of resembles the Submariner a lot. I have some friends, sometimes they ask me, so if I want a Rolex, I have a big wrist, I want something that is more prominent on the wrist, etc. A Submariner at 40mm, 41mm isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
So I usually actually recommend these bigger pieces, which is the Deep Sea or the Sea-Dweller. If you like to have something, if you have a bigger wrist and you would like to have something with some wrist presence, I think the Sea-Dweller, I mean, if you look at it today, how many Sea-Dwellers are sold and how many are actually used for their intended
purpose.
For the intended
But how many
purpose.
Submariners are used for the intended purpose?
None, I think.
Nah.
I mean, obviously some, but so from a commercial standpoint, I think with the more resemblance towards the Submariner, I think it's a good thing from a commercial standpoint that it kind of resembles the Submariner, but is a chunkier piece for people with a slightly bigger wrist or that likes bigger watches on their wrists. So I like it. I like the size difference.
Yeah. And if you don't want the red text nor the Cyclops, there is the previous reference 116600 that was only in production for a very, very short period of time for Rolex
measures.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years. It was introduced back in 2014, hit retailers like in 2015, and then it was discontinued in 2017 at the same time of the introduction of the 50th anniversary Sea-Dweller 43.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
but there were some key changes as well. I mean, the size was significantly buffed up.
It was the previous one was 40.
Yes.
Same as the Submariner.
Yes.
The main differences between the Sea-Dweller 40 and the Submariner 40 was the finish of the dial. It was more matte, I believe, and you had the same type of bezel as you see on the Sea-Dweller 43.
Yeah.
And then naturally without the Cyclops.
Yeah, absolutely. One other very fun aspect to look at when you're comparing the Submariner to the Sea-Dweller is actually the thickness of these watches. So, I mean, let's first take a closer look of both watches on the wrist. Here you go with the Rolex Submariner directly on the wrist. As you can see, flat profile looks pretty good on the wrist.
Yeah.
And here we go with the Sea-Dweller on the wrist. As you see, more prominent. It looks a little bit buffed up. It's been in the gym and
on steroids.
Yeah, and it definitely demands its presence on the wrist. And let's have a closer look of both watches and profile. The Rolex Submariner measures approximately 12.3 millimeters, while the Rolex Sea-Dweller measures astonishing 15.5 millimeters in thickness. So it's a big boy.
It's a big boy.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Cool. Let's talk about the value.
The value?
Market prices.
They're for free. You just go into a Rolex store and you just say, I want Submariner, they're gonna just give you one. No. So the actually both watches surprisingly are priced very close to each other in the, let me say, real market. With that I mean the secondary market where they are readily available. So if you would like to pull the trigger on any of these two watches today, it would set you back somewhere around 16.5 up to 17,500 US dollars, depending on where you buy, etc. These prices are for unworn watches, so let's say new watches. But if you look at the actual retail price, the Sea-Dweller trumps the Submariner by approximately 4,000 US dollars. The Sea-Dweller is somewhere around 14,000 US as a retail price, while the Submariner is somewhere around 10, 11, depending on where you pick your retail price from. So there's a huge difference, but also worthy of stating, the premium on the Submariner is insane.
Yeah.
From a retail price of approximately 10, 11 up to 17. This is getting,
it's almost double retail on a Submariner nowadays.
This is getting ridiculous, guys. Ridiculous.
But interesting to see that a chunky watch, it seems to be really popular. I don't know, in Europe maybe not so much. We don't see them as often here. I think that in comparison to the US, this really screams US market watch.
Yeah, absolutely. The US market generally tends to have bigger wrists and likes bigger watches.
Yeah.
So definitely that one should be pretty popular in the US.
All right, guys, that's it for this video. We would love to hear your thoughts on which one of these two you prefer, either the Sea-Dweller or the Submariner. Leave a comment down below and make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.
Thank you.